I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes. I'm feeling like this might be my time to shine with you, with you, with you. I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes.
Hi, welcome to In the Middle and Out of the Box, episode 11. This week we're going to talk about city transportation. This seems to be a very hot topic because of all the traffic and congestion. So what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to start out very wide, very wide, and I'm going to start out with, internationally and across the country, and then I'm going to keep going in county, then I'm going to go to local cities. So we're going to start out very wide. We're going to kind of learn, first of all, what's kind of happening in the transportation industry as far as what's coming down the pike, what's new, and then we're going to work ourselves down closer to local level. So first, enjoy this little video. It's all about what our new city of the future, what new technology is available, and enjoy, and I will be right back.
As towns and cities are getting bigger and busier, our roads are becoming ever more congested. There are more cars on the road now than ever before, so people are being actively encouraged to use public transport when possible to lighten the load and to ease the pressure. Buses, trains, trams and taxis do a great job of moving multiple people around with the use of a single vehicle, but it's not hard to see that this tech is dated and due a serious upgrade. Today, we're looking at the future of public transportation and the vehicles that will change how we move around our cities for good. Uber Elevate. Uber Elevate is the given name of Uber's latest mission to develop and deploy an air-based taxi service called Uber Air. Uber is working with a number of aviation tech companies to bring their visions to life and say that we might see their Elevate services popping up in and around cities sooner than you might think. So what exactly is Uber Air? Uber Air will be a network of small electric aircrafts that will offer rideshare flights throughout the world's largest cities. The eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, that they plan to use are quieter, safer and more affordable than helicopters and will also be significantly more environmentally friendly. The system will work by users ordering an air taxi much in the same way that they would order a traditional Uber. Once they've selected their Uber Air ride, the craft will fly to the nearest skyport, which will be dotted all over building roofs and potentially inner city parks. The user will board the craft and fly to the closest skyport to their chosen destination. From there, a grounded Uber taxi will be ready and waiting to complete the final stages of the user's journey. Using air travel means that people will be able to move around cities quicker and with less stress. Uber estimates that a trip between LAX to the Staples Center during rush hour traffic can be reduced from 1.5 hours to less than 30 minutes using Uber Air. An estimation that includes ordering the Uber Air and transfers between SkyPads. The flight time across LA itself will only take around 4 minutes. Uber Air is expected to fully launch sometime in 2023, which sounds like an optimistic prediction at first glance. However, they're already planning a series of demonstration flights in Melbourne, Dallas and Los Angeles this 2020. Uber has not hinted at what it might cost users to travel using their new venture, but they have said in numerous interviews that they want the airborne taxi service to be affordable for everyone and not just be a novelty reserved for the rich and famous. Hyperloop. High-speed trains have been grabbing plenty of attention over the past decade or so, but there appears to be a new kid on the block that promises to be even faster, more durable and less taxing on the environment. The Hyperloop is the envisioned concept of Elon Musk and is currently in development. The Hyperloop aims to see passengers traveling at speeds of over 700 miles per hour in floating pods through giant low-pressure tubes. You see, overcoming air resistance is one of the biggest uses of energy for any form of high-speed travel. This is why trains are shaped like bullets to be more aerodynamic, and planes fly at high altitudes where the air is thinner. To create this same effect inside a tunnel, the Hyperloop encloses the passenger pods inside of tubes that have had all the air sucked out, effectively allowing the pods to travel without any, or with very little, air resistance. Musk's original plans for the Hyperloop suggests air pressures so low that the drag would be 1,000 times less than what is felt at sea level. This is equivalent to flying a plane at around 150,000 foot. You might be wondering why this is so important, and it basically all comes down to speed. Less air pressure means less drag, and less drag means more speed. The Hyperloop pods used in Musk's model will work by using compressed air pressure to float just above the tube's surface on a pair of air-bearing skis. Other mock-ups of the Hyperloop have included the use of magnets to get the pods levitating. However, the air ski version seems to be the most viable option. To get the pod moving, an external linear electric motor will give it a little push until it reaches high subsonic velocity, where it will then be left to coast at around 700 miles per hour until it reaches its destination. Every 70 miles or so, the pod will need a small boost from the electric motors, but because there is such little friction, once it gets going, there really isn't anything slowing it down. A standard capsule is set to carry 28 passengers, with other larger versions aiming to carry up to 40. Musk has also said that if they lay big enough tubes, the Hyperloop may have commercial freight use as well. Skytran. If there's one thing that people hate about public transport, it's all of the constant stopping and starting. Skytran plans to solve this issue by creating a system that allows for seamless point-to-point travel between destinations. By giving you the option to bypass stations along the way, users of the Skytran can travel at high speeds for the duration of their trip, only slowing down when it's time to pull into their chosen stopping point. The ultra-lightweight two-passenger pods travel along suspended rails using something called maglev technology. Maglev allows the pods to actually levitate above the rails, much like the pods do inside of Musk's Hyperloop. Because there are no contact points between the pods and the rails, there's no friction. This not only makes Skytran fast and efficient, but also reduces wear and tear. Very little power is needed to get the pods moving, and the manufacturer says that the roof-mounted solar panels produce more than enough electricity to cover the propulsion. The Skytran network is set to be entirely computer-controlled and is putting a lot of attention on being as user-friendly as possible. Passengers of the system will be able to order a pod to a specific location for a certain time, or they can go to one of the larger pod rank stations where there'll be a queue of pods waiting for them. Once on board, the pod will recognize passengers' Skytran cards and queue up music, movies, or apps accordingly. It will then pick up speed and re-enter the main line of travel until the desired destination is reached. One of the most important advantages of the Skytran over other similar transport concepts is its lightweight and modular design. The rails on which the pods ride along sit on poles that aren't much bigger than a telephone pole. The entire network is completely modular and snaps together in an almost Lego-like fashion. This not only keeps manufacturing costs to a minimum, but also means that the lines can be built incredibly quickly using low-skill technicians. The first full-scale use of the Skytran is planned to take place in Tel Aviv, Israel. However, there are subscale versions under construction in California and Texas. Olli 2.0 Autonomous Shuttle. The first edition of the Olli Autonomous Shuttle Bus was revealed some 4 years ago in 2016. 4 years of time, effort and development later, and the company's 2.0 version is already in full swing, eager to go into full-scale production. Local Motors and their Olli bus are familiar figures in the autonomous vehicle scene, but in the public eye, they seem to be vastly overshadowed by the likes of Argo AI, Waymo and Uber, the bigger companies that are all pursuing for autonomous taxis that share the same design as our current city cars. Olli might not be the most sleek-looking autonomous vehicle due to feature on our city roads, but it might just be the best. Like the Olli 1, the 2.0 version shares the same boxy shape, 25 miles per hour top speed, and level 4 autonomous capability, which might leave you asking what's actually changed. Well, for starters, the range has been boosted up to 100 miles on a single charge, which is a huge improvement over its older sibling. The Olli 2.0 is also made up of 80% 3D printed parts and now runs off electric hub motors as opposed to axle-based. The Olli 2.0 really starts to stand out when you look at its improved user interface and customizable options. Local Motors said that they could potentially customize the Olli 2.0 to anybody's spec, given that they can partner up with the right people. The interior can be bespoke made to suit different needs as well. While the Olli's main purpose is shuttling busy city bodies around, if, say, a hospital wanted to use an Olli to move patients between wards, the manufacturer could install fewer seats and add safety fixtures for hospital beds. I believe that this flexible design approach will give the Olli 2.0 a massive edge over its autonomous shuttle competitors, and in its current form, it will probably be the first to gain widespread acceptance from public transport users. Segway S-Pod. Segway has fully established itself as the category leader in short-distance transportation, from their revolutionary mono-wheel Z10 to their vastly popular push scooters. In their own words, they are changing the way people move from place to place. The company describes its latest invention, the Segway S-Pod, as a game changer for personal transportation. And whilst its intended use is primarily for large enclosed campuses, such as airports and amusement parks, the S-Pod could become the next big player in the personal public transport sector. Currently, the only personal transport offerings in cities are electric scooters and bicycles, so there's certainly room for something a little bigger, better, and more comfortable. Like the original Segway, the S-Pod is a self-balancing vehicle for upright riding, but instead of standing, the riders are placed into a super relaxed seating position. The S-Pod still moves backwards and forwards by the riders shifting their center of gravity, although the acceleration is controlled using a convenient little speed dial as opposed to leaning alone. The styling of this new personal transporter is said to be inspired by the gyrospheres used in the Jurassic World movie, although the S-Pod is definitely far more egg-shaped than spherical. The S-Pod's top speed is 24 miles per hour, which doesn't sound all that fast, but trust me, it does feel it when riding in such a laid-back position. Segway is saying that the S-Pod is their first step towards their goal of bringing new transportation options to cities, and plans to start rolling them out to buyers by late 2020. Okay, the S-Pod isn't exactly breaking new ground. We've all been seeing this Segway tech for years now. However, it will be incredibly interesting to see what a difference this new approach to personal public transport will make to our busy inner cities.
Okay, so internationally, we have a lot of countries and cities trying to implement intra-city transportation. They're realizing that the cars are just out of control. They're really not needed in a lot of cases. And so they're trying to start implementing different types of transportation services. So Paris has an aerial tram that's supposed to be completed in 2025. And this is supposed to take people from the suburbs of Paris into the direct city. And again, a quick and easy, effective way, efficient way to transport people without bringing more cars into the city. So that's one thing that I noticed about this and I wanted to share. Okay, here's an example from London, from England, right? So they partnered with Uber and they actually have a water taxi, and they call it an Uber boat. And a lot of people are commuting on the river there, back and forth, and it's fantastic. It's very successful. And again, you're taking cars off the street, right? So this is another solution that another city or country has found. This is also part of London also. They're using these trams, these lightweight trams in certain parts of the city to move people back and forth, again, trying to take cars off the roadways. Okay, now Oslo, Norway is a very good example of what they've done. They've really tried to take the cars off the streets, but they started in stages. So they started during the pandemic, right? They closed down a lot of the streets to car traffic. They put a lot of parks. They tried to implement no cars on certain roads. And what they found is, as they were coming out of the pandemic, is that they didn't really need, the people got used to not having cars on the road and they were able to still function and able to not have to bring all that traffic into the city. So they've created, now they're actually the leader in the world where countries are coming to them constantly for the innovation and the process and the urban planning that they did to achieve this goal. They also set a goal to be totally carbon neutral by 2050, and they're well within their way. So I just want you to take a look at this video. I think it's very inspiring to see what can be achieved and the motivation and level that needs to happen in order to get this stuff done. So take a look at this video from Oslo, Norway. So again, after the video, you kind of get an idea. They replaced a lot of parking spaces with bike lanes. They created several pedestrian only zones, like I mentioned. They created little parkettes or parks. And so they were able to achieve this and they're on their way to their goal. Okay, so New York City now is in the midst of planning on trying to see how the roads up there would be affected. They've been a big implementer of Vision Zero, and now they're looking into what they can do to try to take some of the traffic again out of the city, especially New York City that has actually a really good intra transportation system, right? We have the subway system, um, and we have there's a couple other things that you can do there. They have a lot of bike lanes now with Vision Zero, things like that. So they're trying to see what it would look like actually converting some of these roads into pedestrian only or bike only and things like that. So here are some drawings with just some ideas of what it would look like. So you can see how the top city street on the left side gets converted, and half of it turns into looks like a one way, and the other half is turns into a bike lane. The bottom one looks like there's a lot of space that they're creating for pedestrians, for walkways, for bicycles. So again, this is all part of the new urban planning, trying to reduce the cars on the road. Okay, here is very interesting. I think this was Park or Fifth Avenue, where they're actually making in the middle, they're widening the median and they're actually making that the pedestrian walkway in addition to right next to it, bicycle lanes on both sides and cutting down the traffic. Again, down at the bottom, they're actually making the bicycle lanes kind of like the prime thoroughfare and the cars is secondary. Okay. And so what happens is a lot of times when you have a very good intra or intercity transportation system, the cars aren't as needed. Okay, not that they're not ever needed, but they're not as needed because it's so simple to get onto something and get somewhere. So that's the whole idea behind this is trying to reduce the traffic and make it a very good network and system that's actually going to be really usable and efficient. Okay, so a lot of times we bring ideas forward and we always have the naysayers, right? That will never work in our city. That's not going to work. We would never be able to do that. Well, that's not really true, right? So a lot of times those naysayers say that because out of fear, out of change. But in actuality, other cities, other countries, other counties are doing it, right? So it can be done. So it's just about the will and if you really want it done in your city. So let's look at some ideas. Before we get into the local areas or the county areas, like I said, we're kind of working our way down, is I want to talk about something called the 15-minute city. This is the newest idea in urban planning. And basically what it is the 15-minute city is a residential urban concept in which most daily necessities and services such as work, shopping, education, health, and leisure should be located within an easily reachable 15-minute walk or bike ride from any point in the city. So basically, think about it this way, right? A lot of us now work at home or we work on a hybrid schedule. We should be able to have our school right there. We should be able to have shopping right there. We should be able to have our pharmacy right within 15 minutes of our home, right? So if we have something like that, we're not constantly on the road going somewhere. We're not constantly having to go to the other side of town to get to a supermarket. We're not having to go to the other side of town to go see a doctor. We're not having to do that. So again, if we can find things that are within 15 minutes of our home and circle around that area and be able to stay within that area, then that's more feasible, right? To get some more cars off the road because we're not constantly having to go somewhere that's traffic and backing everybody up. Now, does that mean you can never go to Costco? Well, of course not. You can go to Costco, but it's more of a conceptual thing, right? It's more about the idea that this is going to affect you as far as your home. So the 15-minute city is going to affect us in more ways than one, right? Not only is it going to take more cars off the road, but it's going to make our life even more convenient. But I wanted to just read a little bit more information about what the 15-minute city does. The motivation for developing the model was to disrupt the traditional carb-focused approach that dominates urban design thinking and replace it with more of a one focused on hyperproximity. This results in huge emission reductions and will also lead to more sustainable human-centric urban environments. There's a growing body of evidence that suggests such neighborhoods promote everything from social cohesion to public health. It has worked in cities that have recently adopted this type of planning and has reduced car use by over 20% and still climbing. Also, lots of roads and areas that mini parks and new parking areas that sprang up during the pandemic have stayed, and cities are now realizing that they don't need as many cars as they did before. So, again, seems to be a lot of really good benefits to this 15-minute city idea concept in urban planning. This is the newest concept in urban planning, and it kind of goes against everything that suburbia was built on, right? So, everybody moved out of the cities originally, went into suburbia. Everything was spread out. Everybody needed a car to go anywhere. Now we're going back to that, but not necessarily to the city. We're going back to our 15-minute city. So it can be anywhere. So again, this is just a new concept that I wanted to introduce to everybody because I think it's very interesting. And this we'll get into more of this later on down the road when we talk about zoning and density. Okay, so let's talk about what the local need is for the intracity or intercity transportation. Okay, so we know that a lot of people have come to Florida. 1,000 people a day were coming. We have now lots of businesses that are actually coming here and moving their headquarters. And actually, this year, we're actually seeing the statistics and the data showing that less people are leaving Florida. So there isn't even this natural attrition. There's actually still an increase, a significant increase in new residents coming to Florida. So we know our streets are over capacity, right? We know that we have too many cars. We also understand that, everybody always has their suggestion. Well, we can do sequencing of lights. Okay, at this point, there's so much traffic that even if the lights were sequenced, they would still be backed up prior to even being able to be going through them. So it wouldn't even work at this point because the roads are overburdened at this point, over capacity. So, what is required is we have to think differently, right? So, we have to think zoning and density flexibility. So, again, as I mentioned in the 15-minute city, everything should be within walking distance or bike distance and kind of a 15, 20-minute area around where you're living. And it has to be done kind of everywhere, right? It can't just be done in this part of town or this part of town. One of the things that it mentioned is, well, there's two things. So one is that it affects two different types of areas, right? So we also have the very wealthy or the higher middle class areas saying, well, we don't want certain stores in our neighborhood, or we don't want certain facilities in our area, and so forth. Well, they don't have to be on your block, but it would be within 15, 20 minutes of where you live. So I think that's feasible. But what we have to make sure is that our zoning allows for those types of things so that we're kind of in a self-contained area around where we live. So if you're in an area that doesn't allow, let's say, commercial properties, that's something that the city would have to fix, right, to allow certain types of commercial properties or medical facilities or pharmacies or whatever. So again, this is where the flexibility in zoning has to start happening in urban planning. Now, it's the same thing for in our Black and Brown communities. We need to make sure that they have access to everything in their 15 minutes. I can think of right now that I know in Delray, west of Swinton, they still are lacking a supermarket. And so, again, to try to do this 15 minutes of walking and bicycle riding around where they live to go to a supermarket probably isn't feasible. So, again, we have to make sure that these things are getting done and they're zoned and they're allowing for density and so forth so that everybody has this new way of urban planning and is self-contained. And again, it takes more cars off the road, okay? And it is successful. We can have naysayers, but the cities and countries and so forth that have done this have been very successful at this. I think I mentioned to you that they've already started and noticed a 20% decrease in cars on the road and still going up. So let's talk about solutions, right? So we need an urgent need for in our cities, an urgent need for people movers. Now, believe it or not, Brightline is actually a people mover. I know it's touted as a train and commuter train or whatever, but it's really actually a people mover, right? So it's not stopping at every stop, but what it's doing is it's getting people from point A to point B very quickly in a high-speed train, and it's a way to get them to a different city without putting them in a car. So it is a people mover. It's actually a very successful people mover. So we have to think of things differently. The other thing is we have something coming across, a light rail system coming across Palm Beach County, which I will get into. We also have Freebie, right? So now Freebie is something that needs major expansion. Fort Lauderdale is using a Freebie type service. Delray is using a Freebie type service. They're in 55 communities across South Florida. But these have to be expanded significantly. These can't just be, kind of, well, yeah, once in a while, because all you ever hear is, they're always busy, no one picks up the phone, they don't have enough cars. No, it's got to be like, it's just always available. It's available, it's ready, it's there, it's on time. It's the actual map of coverage where they go. Make sure that everybody in the whole city is covered for that, that's in the city limits and not just portions of it and so forth. So, also, we talked about a water taxi, right? So, again, a water taxi is imperative for, especially we have the intercoastal right here. So, again, from city to city, it's kind of similar to Brightline, right? So, you can go from Boca to Delray, Delray to Boca, stop in Highland Beach, wherever. But the whole point, go to Boynton. Again, that would take a lot of cars off the road. So we also have to, think about, right now we don't really have, again, because we haven't really instituted Vision Zero very well, is there's these huge lanes that are required for bicycles and different modalities as far as electric scooters, electric unicycles, pedicabs, electric bicycles, personal, whatever your personal device is that you want to get somewhere, right? You should be able to have a safe place to do that. And the focus has always been on the cars, but it's got to shrink the other way. It's got to be thinking outside the box, right? Other cities are shrinking their car lanes, increasing their Vision Zero, increasing their bike lanes and their modal modality lanes. That's what we're up to at this point. And we're way behind on that in all of the cities. We don't even really have in Delray, Boca, and Highland Beach actual real bike lanes. We have on A1A, we have, like we talked about in Vision Zero episode, we basically just have a shoulder, which is pretty sad at this point. So let's move on. Okay, so one of the solutions I just talked about was the Wellington light rail system. So this is really interesting. I have a very short video. It's 17 proposed stops and covers 13.5 miles along the east-west or the west-east corridor, starting at Wellington Mall, going all the way to Lake Okeechobee and all the way to downtown Palm Beach, West Palm Beach. So I have a very short video. I want you to take a look at it, and hopefully you will think it's great and exciting.
A light rail project on Okeechobee Boulevard and State Road 7 from the mall at Wellington Green to downtown West Palm Beach.
We can't really control change, so change is coming.
Valerie Nielsen is TPA's interim executive director.
Where are we going over the next 5, 15, 25 years? So you can't continue to sprawl forever. You have to start using your resources more wisely.
So the TPA revealed this rendering, a snapshot of what this light rail project could look like. The first station is across from the Palm Beach County Convention Center with a track running right down the middle of Okeechobee Boulevard. It's modeled after similar light rail projects in Portland, Oregon, Phoenix, and Salt Lake City. Austin, Texas also making moves to add a light rail.
This is something that Broward's already planning on. They already have funding for. Miami's already there with their smart plans.
A study by Seattle Subway shows the dramatic difference to move 1,000 people. It could take 625 cars or just one link train to do so.
Okay, so here's another picture to show it. This is one of the, I think, the Congress station. And as you can see, the light rail would go down the middle of the median and again would just transport people from west to east and east to west. Here's actually the route. Again, it starts at Wellington Mall and goes all the way down to West Palm Beach. So, the Kravitz Center area, and I think even further down than that. So again, we have to start thinking differently. A lot of us can sit here and say, well, yeah, but I want my own car. Well, that's great, but you're adding to the problem, right? So if you have a plan to go to the Kravitz Center, get on, and you live in Wellington, get on the light tram and get to the Kravitz Center, right? And it's going to be constantly going back and forth and flowing. There's no, limit on times and so forth. So I think it's going to be every 15 minutes. Again, though, we have to make sure that it's structured properly, where it's open and it doesn't, close down at a certain time. And we have to make sure these things are going to be efficiently used and planned properly. But if they're there, let's use them, right? Take the cars off the road. Okay, West Palm Beach. Now they have their trolley system, which is, these buses that are, I guess you want to call them disguised as trolleys. So again, but at least they have something, right? Intercity, right? They have something that's going back and forth, has numerous lines, numerous stops, numerous hours depending on the line. They offer downtown, outside the city, So again, they're at least they're thinking and they have enough available that it seems to be that it's working. They probably would also benefit from doing a freebie type system too. That would just add a little bit more effectiveness for the local, just short hops and so forth. So, but at least they have something in plan, and but again, it can be improved. Okay, this is Fort Lauderdale. So again, they have a freebie type system. If you look at their map area, they really include a lot of Fort Lauderdale. Could it be increased? Absolutely. Should it be increased? Absolutely, right? So we should just be seeing a lot of these freebies on the streets, just going back and less and less and less cars. And again, they have a very big water taxi. So again, they have a very long route for their water taxi and a great commute. I mean, like we saw, London was doing it with the Uber boat. So again, we're doing it down here in Fort Lauderdale. So it seems like they're on the right track as far as intercity transportation. They seem to be coming at it, which is what you're supposed to be doing, right? You're supposed to be coming at it from all different angles, not just one. There's not just one quick answer to all this. You've got to be coming at it at different angles. So now they're even talking about working with Elon Musk and this tunnel to the beach. And if you see the actual route from the Boring Company, it starts out west and goes all the way, bypasses the city, and goes all the way down to the beach. So again, supposedly it's still in the works, hasn't been killed yet. They actually were doing a feasibility study to make sure that the limestone and everything in Florida would work with this type of system and there wouldn't be any issues. So that still, I think, was due the middle of this month. And hopefully that's come back correct and that we can do a go ahead with this. But I want you to just watch a quick video to kind of get an idea of how it would work. Okay, so let's talk about closer and closer. We just keep coming in, right? We're doing international, country, county, and some cities and towns around us. And now we're getting down into Delray, Boca, and Highland Beach. So we have Delray has basically the freebie system, right? Now, Delray's system on freebie, though, unfortunately, is not very reliable based on a lot of feedback that people give. Like I mentioned earlier, there's not enough of them. There's a very long wait. The hours don't really always aren't, compatible with what's needed. And also, it has a very limited area, right? And it also requires you, which I didn't understand this part, requires you to go downtown, right? So the whole idea is not just, oh, well, I have to go downtown, touch downtown, I'm on downtown. Okay, now can you bring me to where I need to go? I mean, it doesn't even make sense. So I understand you want to bring people downtown, but the whole idea is just to get around the city, right? It's supposed to be intercity, right? Intracity, I'm sorry. So let's expand the area so that it covers all of the city limits. Right now, it's not doing that, right? So we have a lot of area that's not covered here that's actually considered the city. We have some that are past 95 that are still within the city limits. I think it's up to military. Secondly, let's not make it a requirement that you have to touch downtown. Okay, so, and then the third thing is let's increase the amount of freebies available, right? So it should again be, 5-10 minute wait, no, not a big deal. They should be available a lot of hours of the day for workers commuting late night, especially along Atlantic Avenue and things like that. We should be seeing so many of these going around, taking those cars up the road. So many people would be using these much more if they were available, okay? So again, this is the answer to a lot of the traffic and problems in Delray right now. But I don't think they're thinking out of the box here, right? They're so worried about the dollars when they're worried instead of worrying about the traffic and parking and nightmare that everybody has to go through to park downtown or around the city. So let's try to again make it more efficient. And so that would be my suggestion. In addition to that, we've talked about a water taxi. So again, we have the Marina District, we have where Lady Atlantic is. There's a dock there. Get a water taxi. Get it down to Boca. Get it down, Boca to Del Rey, Highland Beach, whatever. Get a water taxi going. Not a problem, right? So it's a win-win for everybody. Charge a minimal amount if you feel you need to cover costs, but at least get something. Okay. So again, you have to have this multi approach to solving the problem. It's not just one answer. Now, when Delaware Freebie just recently, I think it was last year, came up for renewal, they had four proposals, I guess, or four options. I think they went with option number 3, if I'm not mistaken. But again, some of the options were to also include going to the trial station. Some of them included getting some additional Teslas, which they have available in other cities, and other things. I'm not really thrilled with any of the options, to be honest with you, because they really don't fit the need of the city. So it's great, maybe 10 years ago if we started with this, but we're way beyond this at this point, right? So the option should be full city, lots more of these, and expanded hours. And this should be like a top priority in the annual budget and so forth. This is huge. Because what's happening is a lot of people are turning away from coming right to the city because of the traffic. It's just horrendous. So this was a survey that just recently out with the the Delray Beach Parking and Traffic Plan. A lot of people were asked certain questions on this survey to come up with the plans that they put forth that haven't been implemented yet. And basically it was, how far would you be willing to walk for free or discounted parking rates? And it seems like the majority of people are willing to walk 2 or 3 blocks, right? So let's think about that. So even if you had a water taxi that came in down at the marina, 2 or 3 blocks is pretty much downtown, right? If you had a freebie and it only dropped off, let's say, it's a certain spot or location or whatever, probably 2 or 3 blocks, you'd probably get to where you want to go. So again, I think people are willing to if they feel like they have a efficient and adequate service. They don't feel like they don't have to walk. They don't need to walk or be as close to something as possible. But it has to be a really good service to give it to them. Okay, so this is interesting, right? So in your opinion, which of the below should be the primary funding source of the building and maintenance for parking facilities? I'm assuming, hopefully, transportation also. So it says parking users, city tax dollars, a combination of and I'm assuming that means county taxes. Okay, so everyone's saying, hey, kind of look at the majority here. So they're saying, yeah, I would probably pay for it in my taxes or a combination of city and county taxes if I felt that it was worth it, right? If it was something I could really use, if it was efficient, if it was effective, if it was available, if it had the right hours, if it was, accessible and always there and not, a long wait. But that's not what we're getting right now. So there's this, this pull. It's either going to have to go one or the other, right? So we've got to get the cars off the road. So this would be a better system. And the people in Delray by this survey are telling Delray, this is what we want. This is what we need. We're willing to do this, but we just have to do it. Okay, so let's switch to Boca Raton. Oh, joy, right? Now it's their turn. So anyway, so Boca Raton, which is really, honestly, I was shocked, right? They had this freebie service. I think it was until 2016, 17, not quite sure the date. There seems to have been some kind of contractual issue, and it was with the prior mayor. It wasn't with Scott Singer. And there seems to have been really not an understanding of why this was needed, and it wasn't that important, and they didn't want to spend money on it, and so forth. When in actuality, that probably would have been the time to be ramping it up, right? So they currently have no intra-city transportation system. I'm not talking about the county with Palm Tran. I'm talking about within Boca Raton itself, right? The city of Boca Raton. So they currently have no intra-city transportation system, which I found astonishing, right? Because Boca leads in so many things, and this is huge. And so we need to change the thinking, right? We need the city to be more efficient, less traffic. Again, major traffic issues there. Trying to get those cars off the road. We need to come into the 21st century with our intra-city transportation. So again, this would be a great city for freebie type of vehicles again. Water taxi. I think we talked about that again in episode 1. Vision Zero. And again, really great bike lanes and multi-modality lanes that for all types of devices. And we've got to do it, right? So Boca probably has the money to do it. So you got to have the political will to do this, right? So in order to make the city run more efficiently, if you want to, Boca has a lot of development, right? Has a lot of high rises and so forth, and we're adding a lot of people in density. But we have to give them a system to work within the city to get the cars off the road. So again, an intra-city transportation system would fit Boca perfectly, and it has the room, it has the space. You have Silver Palm Park, you have Wildflower that you could dock a taxi. And speaking of a taxi, which I thought was very interesting, when I was going through my research for this for today, look at what I found. Boca used to have a little water taxi. So you see the little sign there that says Boca Raton, and I used to go up and down the Intercoastal and or across, I'm assuming also. And so I used to have a little water taxi, right? So maybe we can learn from our ancestors, right? So this is a great idea. People would really, the fact that we have an Intercoastal, let's use it, okay? Again, it's not just water taxis though. It's a freebie type system. It's, all the different things we talked about, Vision Zero, making sure there's safe bike lanes, things like that. So it's a whole interconnected system that's required. Okay, so now Highland Beach, right? So now Highland Beach, in itself doesn't really make sense because it's just going up and down A1A. Okay, really, it doesn't have commercial property. It doesn't have stores. It has one grandfathered in hotel and that has a restaurant. Okay, so it's really just a bedroom community, all residential. So going up and down A1A really wouldn't make sense. So Highland Beach would have to partner with Boca or Del Rey to be part of the freebie system. They could even cut it in half, and half takes Boca and half the northern part takes Del Rey. But the point is that they would have to contract with the cities that are around them for it even to be effective. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people on Highland Beach, right? So this system, I'm sure, would really be used for the people in Highland Beach. So it's interesting because, again, when I was vice mayor, we started a trolley, a Christmas or holiday celebration at the city center where we have town hall and the police department and everything. And the whole huge parking lot out front was turned into, a beautiful Christmas tree and just a bunch of things going on for the holiday, food trucks and, a whole bunch of things. And the idea was, well, how do we get everybody from Highland Beach into this city center? Because there's not enough room for everybody to park, right? If all the residents come at once to park, there's not enough room. So we came up with the idea of doing a trolley system, right? And so what we did was we planned, here's the city center. So we planned all along A1A to have little stops in front of buildings that are spaced out a certain amount so that everybody had an opportunity to get onto the trolley, didn't have to walk too far and so forth. Well, believe it or not, it went extremely well. And, at first it took a little getting used to, right? Because people don't want to give up those cars, right? So even though like we had just go back a little bit. We had the whole city center blocked off because there's obviously vendors and Christmas tree and all the activities, the music and stuff going on in there. So we had them all barricaded off, right? So people were coming with their cars trying to turn into the barricades, and the police officers are standing there saying, "You can't come in here. This isn't for cars. It's a pedestrian area where the event is going on." And people just had a very hard time with this. They couldn't get over the fact that they couldn't drive their car literally, 500 feet down the road from their condo or whatever. Well, once these stops got into place here, and they actually got into the whole, trolley system, and that they're going to an event, and it was fun, and it was packed. The trolleys were packed. They loved it. They loved the idea of walking down to the street to their designated stop, getting on, and coming to the city center for the event. So, I mean, there is a way to, it's about changing ideas, changing behaviors, and so forth. And then actually, when people actually gave it a chance, it did really well. So now every year, from what I understand, they're clamoring, for are we still getting our trolley? Are we still doing our trolleys? They all want the trolley for the holiday event. So it's kind of funny at this point and ironic, but that's how it is. So, in summary about transportation, we need to make it a priority. Again, this is another one of those situations, just like affordable housing. You have to have the political will. You have to make sure that your commissioners provide intracity transportation in their annual budget as a major component and not just an afterthought or a side thought. I mean, it has to be one of the main things of their city is the transportation within their city for their residents. Again, we have to think about flexible zoning and density. Remember the 15-minute city that we talked about? We have to be able to allow certain types of stores or medical offices or whatever in certain neighborhoods so that we have this 15-minute city around us and that's possible so that we don't have to always get into our car. And again, there's no magic one answer. It's a collaborative approach of using different solutions to make the difference. So there is no, silver bullet here. It's just everything has to work together and it's possible. Their city's doing it. So again, I just wanted to make sure that you saw what's really going on out there from a high level. You can work your way down into what's going on locally. It's that there are a lot of people using this, doing this, working on this, new things coming out. But again, right now, a lot of things still can be done. So let's talk about science and technology. So there was a couple new things that came out about EV cars. So for those of you that have EVs, this is going to be very interesting for you. So Bank of America has decided that in addition to financing auto loans for EVs, they've also decided to bundle and allow the EV charger that you would have to install maybe at your home or whatever to be included in the financing. So now you actually get to finance the actual charger too, which is fantastic, right? Because a lot of people can afford the EV car, especially now that they've reduced the pricing, so you have the tax credit and so forth. But that EV charger to put in at your home is quite a bit, right? So now you're able to finance it both, right, with the car loan and the EV charger. So I thought that was fantastic news for a lot of the people that wanted to get an EV and just were having trouble affording the charger. Something else that's come out too is Google's introducing into their Google Maps that are actually showing now where all the EV chargers are, right? So you put in where your destination is that you want to go, and it will actually show you along the route where EV chargers are. It will also show you, like, if there's certain supermarkets that you want to go to or whatever, whether they have EV chargers themselves. So it will all be recognized on the Google Maps. So a lot of people have anxiety about being left and not being able to charge up and get to their destinations, where this will show you all along the line. It will also take into account the traffic. So it will say, if you have X amount of charge left on your car, we're going to make sure that we show you where to go and how to get to your destination that's going to pass a charger that will be able to fill up your charge. So again, it's all AI, artificial intelligence. It's going to really help all those people that are looking and always worried about not having enough charge. And it will just pinpoint for you on the Google Maps where those chargers are in your destination, which is fantastic. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about plastics for a minute. I mentioned in the desalinization, and I think one or two after that, nanoplastics are microplastics. They're in our bodies now. They're everywhere. They're in our water, and this is one of the things that also new water treatment plants are doing is they're actually filtering for nanoplastics. But our plastics are getting more and more. We had the highest record of plastics produced in oceans and garbage and everything than ever before, which is a lot, especially considering the plastic only entered our everyday lives after World War II. So, I mean, the world is getting consumed at this point by plastics. And so I just wanted to, bring that out that this was the highest record of plastics ever since it began, basically. And I wanted to kind of show a couple things that are happening with that industry. So this is a ocean cleanup that they started doing. I think a lot of us, are familiar. I think it's in the Pacific Ocean that there's this very large, basically island of floating plastic that is just huge. Must be where the currents all meet or whatever. And they're trying to think of ways to how to clean this up better. And so take a watch of this video and see what you think. Sounds kind of like a good idea to me. So better than just picking it up piece by piece. So take a look and see what you think. Okay, next is science and technology for our beach, right? So for plastics. So I know a lot of us have beach rakers or rakers that come on the beach, which is great. Okay, but unfortunately, what they do is just bury the garbage, right? And that's not really the right way to handle that as far as environmentally. We have a lot of sea turtles and we have and so forth that start eating and ingesting plastic and garbage. And so it's really best to take it off the beach, right? So this company, 4Ocean, I'm sure you've heard of them. They've actually come up with these devices that go up and down the beach, clean the beach. They don't have the weight of the tractors that are ruining the dunes and the beach surface and crushing everything and just basically burying it. And so it's a much better alternative. There's very many cities that have already purchased this and are using this on a daily or weekly basis. And again, why wouldn't we over here on the East Coast, on, Boca, Delray, Highland Beach? This is something that maybe even a condo could buy, right, for their own condo use in front of their area or their beach instead of using beach rakers or whatever. So again, it's time to kind of take control of this situation yourself. And so I thought this was a great invention. So take a watch, this little video on it, and hopefully you'll learn something.
Introducing the 100% electric beach cleaning robot. We're stoked to partner with Paralu Marine, which is one of the world's largest marina manufacturers, and they just recently started to produce beach and ocean cleanup technology. And this is the first unit that we've ever made together. It operates off of two 12-volt batteries, assisted by a solar panel that help keep the batteries charged, as well as power accessories. Now, it utilizes a sand sifting mechanism that plows through the sand. It puts sand onto the mesh screen that vibrates back and forth, which allows the sand to fall through and plastic and debris to be loaded into the hopper. Once the hopper's full, you can drive this machine over to the designated dump area where you can offload the material and continue cleaning. One of the most important things that we want to note about this machine is that it cannot distinguish the difference between microplastics, sand, seashells, or possibly organic materials. So it's very important that you sort and take those materials out and recycle the plastic if you can. You can actually unhook the sand sifting mechanism and utilize the robot just as a robot. It's got a trailer hitch on the back, so you can tow trailers, move accessories, jet skis, beach chairs, anything that you need. It's got up to a 900-pound towing capacity, but it's also got the different attachments that you can attach to the robot. So there's a rake attachment that can move seaweed, move algae, and also level sand. So this is an incredibly versatile robot. So one of the things that we're always looking at with our cleanup technology is to make sure that it's not affecting or impacting the environment or wildlife. So the good thing about this machine is it's incredibly lightweight compared to the other machines that are used to clean the beach. So you might see on a local beach a large diesel tractor that's cleaning up this plastic. Well, this is a fraction of the weight. And the even better thing is that it's remote controlled. So you're gonna have somebody walking with this machine, keeping an eye out, making sure that it's not interacting with any wildlife or running over any potential vegetation. So we're incredibly stoked to launch our first ever beach cleaning robot. If you want to learn more about this machine or possibly learn how you can get one on a beach near you, visit 4ocean.com.
Okay, now I'm just throwing this in just kind of as a fun ending to science and technology. Sometimes we overthink everything, right? So sometimes there's such simple ways to do something that would, it's just, who would have thought, right? So this person it's kind of self-explanatory. They're basically using paint, and they've come up with a better way to seal it and not have any drips and so forth. So take a watch and see what you think. Okay, this week's art is going to be broadly about kinetic art, right? So, kinetic art is any piece of art that revolves around a fascination with movement that could be considered kinetic art, right? So Boynton Beach had a huge kinetic art show probably a few weeks ago. And I know I have somebody that watches very much my podcast that's very into kinetic art. So I promised them I would put something on about kinetic art. So it's fascinating. And I hope people don't tune out because this clip is great. And then there's another clip behind this that every time I watch it, it's just a beautiful clip, and you kind of get like just, perspective back again, right? You get that Zen moment, that just a feeling of appreciation. So for art. So again, I just want you to watch this, and I will be right back. Okay, so this is the last piece, and I'm going to leave you here to watch this. And I hope you enjoy this and the one that you just watched as much as I did. Again, it's just another take on art, and but this is a really good, feel-good piece. So I will see you again next week.
There are movements so perfect, you'd hardly think they were made by humans.